What does it feel like to see things that no one else sees? It's what I do every day. My name is Brett Farkas and I'm a genius. This is something that's been in front of everybody's faces for 40 years and only now is it coming to light. Just like Albert Einstein's special theory of relativity united together space and time, and James Maxwell's electromagnetic theory united together light and magnetism. In the same way, King's Quest theory unites Mario and The Legend of Zelda. I'm going to show you all the influences for Zelda first, and afterwards tell you how I think this happened, and then Mario is going to be my grand finale. Our hero in King's Quest 1 has 4 directional movement. He wanders an open world. He wears a slanted adventurer's cap and explores caves. And fights a dragon. He roams around and collects jewels in the overworld, diamonds here, rupees there. He picks up a key, opens a locked door. Along the way, he picks up a dagger and a shield. There are 3 dungeons, 3 bosses, 3 treasures. He goes into the dungeons, defeats a boss inside, and collects a special treasure from each dungeon. And there's a magical fairy that casts a spell to protect you from enemies. It looks like this game could have been based on Zelda, doesn't it? And yet this game was published before work on Zelda even began. The year is 1984, and a genius in his own right has been making arcade games for Nintendo, namely Donkey Kong and the original Mario, which featured a man jumping around on turtles, which emerged from green pipes. The name of this genius creator is Shigeru Miyamoto. The previous year had seen games like Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Space Invaders leading home console sales. But now Miyamoto set his sights on not just arcade games, but games you could play at home. An American housewife named Roberta Williams, along with her computer programming prodigy husband Ken, created the Sierra Company. Roberta had a penchant for mysteries and fairy tales, and was a big fan of text-based adventure games. Why, she thought, couldn't someone make an adventure game that had graphics? And so she wrote King's Quest 1. She drew upon her love of folklore and Disney films to create her game. In the summer of 1984, King's Quest 1 was published for the home computer. In the fall of 1984, Nintendo began developing both Zelda and Super Mario. The timing is very interesting. When asked about his inspiration for Zelda, Miyamoto will recall wandering his hometown in Japan as a child. Maybe that's all it was. Is it possible, though, that Miyamoto played King's Quest 1? There weren't that many computer games at this time, after all. Would a veteran of the video game industry have played this game and seen this hero with a slanted cap, picking up keys and unlocking doors, going into caves, picking up jewels, going into dungeons and rescuing treasures and defeating bosses, getting healed by a fairy? Is it possible that Miyamoto played this game and realized that he too could make a game like this? Was this game so beautiful, so well made, that it inspired him to greatness likewise? He added combat, fantastical weapons and enemies, made the whole thing exponentially larger. See, I think Miyamoto and his collaborator Takashi Tezuka, they didn't really understand American culture completely, and so they were looking for a way in. They worked on Zelda, and they also worked on Mario, and here's where it gets really interesting. They already had Mario, all the jumping mechanics down, but they didn't have a world to put him in. They needed to build a world for Mario. So what do Americans like? Miyamoto would have wondered. I guess they like castles with pointy flags. After all, it's on the very first strain of King's Quest. In King's Quest, you go down this pipe, a well, which makes sense. Pipes don't stand vertically like that, but wells do. And he goes down into a water level where he swims around. Our hero attempts to cross a bridge, but he's unable to because of a troll blocking his path. We've all heard that fairy tale of trolls blocking bridges. And look at this dragon breathing fire. If the fire touches you, it kills you. This is Bowser on the bridge, hunched over, not unlike a turtle. In King's Quest, our hero gets some magic beans and plants them, and a vine grows, just like in Jack and the Beanstalk. He climbs this vine, reaches a cloud level, just like in that fairy tale that you're familiar with. That makes sense. What makes less sense is hitting a random block, a vine coming out, and climbing it to a cloud world. It makes more sense when you consider that this was inspired by King's Quest. Some used to say that Mario's mushroom was based on Alice in Wonderland after all she eats it and becomes large, but Miyamoto dismissed that notion directly, saying that it's generally based on an association with magical worlds. Is it really, though? Outside of Alice in Wonderland, when does eating a mushroom make a character change size? So look at this mushroom. Also note the castle standing in the background. When you eat this mushroom, it makes you change size. You shrink. And after a minute, you grow large. It's a weird looking mushroom, isn't it, with the spots on it like that? This is Mario's mushroom. Soon after this, you go down a passageway into an underground level. There are a few odds and ends that are less compelling but interesting to consider. There's a bird that picks you up and drops you off in another part of the map. That shows up in A Link to the Past. It doesn't go unnoticed that these bushes are everywhere in King's Quest, and these hills in the background are in most of the screens, but that could be a coincidence. 3 screens over from the troll bridge, there's an axe sitting here. It's not that hard to imagine a player contemplating chopping down the wooden bridge using this axe. After all, in this game, you do pick up items and use them elsewhere like that, but again, this idea is somewhat speculative. For this many coincidences, you may think that King's Quest is a huge game, but not really. The overworld is only 48 screens. The dungeons are 4 to 8. In comparison, Zelda's overworld is 128 screens, and the dungeons are around 20 each. This isn't a huge map to have so many alignments. If Shigeru Miyamoto is the father of Mario and Link, then this is their fairy godmother, Roberta Williams. And she created King's Quest from the ground up. She deserves credit for her own genius. She wrote King's Quest. She's the one that created that bridge, and that mushroom, and that castle with the pointy flags, and put them in a video game. In conclusion, this game is an historical monument. This is the common ancestor of Hyrule and the Mushroom Kingdom. You should find these places for yourself and draw your own conclusions. Stand upon that bridge. Eat the mushroom for yourself. You should find this game and play it and appreciate it because it is a great game and it inspired great games. Newton said, "If I've seen further, it's by standing on the shoulders of giants." Maybe Miyamoto was inspired by King's Quest. It is possible that some of these instances are coincidences of creation. It could be so many stars aligning in an artistic constellation. There is one thing that I've left out, and that is the princess. There is no princess in King's Quest. And yet there is Princess Zelda, and there is Princess Peach. Donkey Kong had Mario rescuing Pauline. You can see her sporting her brown hair and ponytail. And I will admit, there's only so much you can do with so many pixels. I'd be willing to say that maybe it is just a poetic coincidence. Although the poet in me wishes it were so, but maybe it is just a poetic coincidence that there is no princess in King's Quest. And that Princess Zelda has the same haircut as Roberta Williams. And Princess Peach, for the first and only time, has red hair.